Hey, everybody. Welcome to Mavens of Data. We've got another great live show for you today. We'll be talking about how to level up from analyst to senior analyst. Let me introduce our guests. So we've got two amazing analytics managers here, Drew and Katie. They both have come up through the ranks, risen, and done exactly what you all in the audience want to do. And they have teams of analysts and senior analysts that they are trying to coach and mentor and help develop as well. So these are the exact type of people that you want to hear from on this topic. So happy to have them both here today. Katie, maybe if you can start us off, like, what do you think separates a senior analyst from an analyst in your mind?
Yeah, good question. I'll give an example for like the technical skill side and the soft skill side, because I think you need to have both and be good at both to move into a senior analyst role. For the technical side, I mean, being able to write good code is kind of a given, but I also think it's not as important as what people might assume as well. On the technical side, I would look for someone who can think abstractly, but with technical subjects. So by that I mean, are they picking the best solution for what the problem is, or are they just picking a solution? Because an entry-level analyst picks a solution because that's all they know. But a senior level analyst can pick the best solution. They can envision a couple of alternatives and figure out how to pick the best solution for the problem. So that's kind of what I would look for on the technical side. On the soft skill side, I know I'm biased with my background, but I think project management is like a super great skill for senior analysts to have. Being able to estimate how long it's going to take you to finish your work, being able to know who your key stakeholders are and how to communicate well with them. I think you have to have that in order to be a senior analyst. The other soft skill would be requirements gathering. That kind of goes hand in hand with that. When you have a new project, and you're an entry-level analyst, your manager spends time defining what work you need to be doing. And when you're a senior analyst, your manager gives you a line or two of, hey, I heard this comment from someone, and I think that would be a good project. I need you to go figure out, how to do it. And so the requirements gathering, I think, is another good soft skill to have.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know, Drew and Katie, I said I wouldn't kind of ask you the same question much, but I think this is such an important one. Drew, any other pieces to add on that?
Yeah, I fully agree. On the technical side, you rarely ever see analysts implementing the same solution over and over. Like senior analysts, they're always willing to be flexible and to learn something new if that's what suits the project best, right? So fully agree with you there, Katie. I also see senior analysts think more about the long term. So like they think, when I build a solution, is this going to work for the next year? Could somebody step in if I leave for some reason and operate in this framework that I've created? Or could I create something that would apply to someone else's problems and they could use it for their own solutions? So you see that kind of like multiplicative thinking. And that's a trait just beyond like technical skill, non-technical skill, your own skill level that you see senior people start to do is think about how to grow others. And I think it's really easy to overlook this when you are just focused on doing your own work very well. Like that's kind of the baseline level that you focus on. But once you start to think about growing other people, helping the team succeed, helping your stakeholders succeed, you become more of a partner to everyone around you. And it's part of what defines you as a senior level analyst.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And it's like the way to multiply yourself to be bigger than one set of hours that one analyst can have. And maybe as a follow-up to that one, Drew, somebody who wants to get better at that, like figuring out how to grow others and deliver through others. But whenever we're in our first role, we don't have to do that, right? We're just individual contributors. And sometimes you have to figure out how to make that leap. How would you recommend somebody start to get decent at doing those things?
Yeah, so it starts with the relationships. If you struggle to really form strong relationships with analysts or with your stakeholders, I would recommend like really learning how to communicate well, how to take interest in other people's projects. Because when you get that communication down, you're going to start multiplying when you start asking people really good questions. So you might ask your fellow analysts like, hey, like, what are you working on? Like, you might speak up in a team meeting and ask follow-up questions on what they're presenting and try to help them see a new angle, or even just learn more for yourself. You might even try to, like, speaking of learning from them, a kind of counterintuitive way to multiply your own influence is to let other people influence you. So if someone else on the team's doing great work, you can grow your own skills and grow your influence by taking their solutions and showing them that you can apply it to your own work. So you're spreading the way that solutions get implemented in the team. It's not just that people have to do what you've done and take your solution and go use it. You can use other people's work as well, and you're willing to kind of, in a very humble way, like, learn from anyone at any time in order to grow your own influence and
Yeah.
team success. Yeah, so just asking questions, and I think it applies with stakeholders too. Like, whatever you're learning, asking the right questions, trying to learn as much as you can, understand what someone else's goals are. That puts you in a position to help them achieve their goals.
Yeah, that's fantastic. The relationships are so important, and it's not necessarily the first thing you think about when you're trying to get an analyst job. Is, oh, I've got to establish trust, and I've got to figure out how to influence people. But it becomes so important that the higher up you get, the more important that becomes. So that's fantastic. And Katie, you talked about project management, and a number of people here in the audience talked about one of the things they see as differentiating is like ability to handle multiple projects with different deadlines and competing priorities and stuff like that. I'd love to go a little more, especially since you have the project management background, like any advice for somebody sort of tackling that for the first time, how to deal with multiple projects and project manage that?
Well, I think I'm a proponent of education, and I know we'll talk about that later. So I think, like, the way that I got started with project management is I got my PMP certification. You don't have to be a project manager to get that one. You just need to work on projects. There's other ones too. There's other good ways to learn, but I would take some time to learn what are all the different pieces. You know, it's stakeholder communication, it's budget planning, it's it's timeline, it's all kinds of things. So I would take some time to learn that. But then, another thing I like to say is everyone works on projects. So everyone has a chance to be a project manager. I mean, we all have, whether it's like, you could consider this show and John planning for the show to be a mini project. So we all have work that's project. So you can practice immediately writing down a little project plan of all the tasks I'm going to do this week. And you could, if your team doesn't have a project manager on the team, you could try to do that for your team. You could try to set up something for your manager and say, hey team, let's all put in our tasks here or something. So I think those are ways that I kind of got started in it. And so I think it worked out well for me. So that would be something, I think, regardless of team, you could try to, everyone works on projects. So you could try to just bring more discipline of writing down your tasks for the week, assigning your tasks, having another big proponent, or another thing I'm a big proponent of is like a stand-up, a weekly meeting or a daily meeting, just as a whole team come together and discuss what are we working on as a team, what are we blocked on. It helps me as a manager, but I know it helps everyone else on the call too. So those are some ideas, I think, of how to get started in project management.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, the show is a funny example because I definitely don't have a project management background, but have handled projects for a long time. So, but it's probably crude. But I just have a spreadsheet of all the 60 items that need to happen for a show to go live and get produced and promoted and all that stuff. And I kind of work through that. You'd probably laugh at my process and be able to help it out a lot. But it's working for us.
I think a lot of good project plans are in Excel. It's more about the discipline of like updating it and things. Microsoft Project, if anyone hasn't heard of it yet, Microsoft has a program called Project that's often included like at your company with your company's license or something. So you could play around with that. But Excel works just as good too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think one kind of theme, you both covered some different stuff and some overlap, but one theme that came out from both of you is neither of you were like, it's better SQL code. Like I'm better in Tableau, Power BI, like that stuff's important. And I think Katie, you started with that. Yeah, that's a given that you're solid, but that's not like what keeps you rising. It's the softer skills. It's working with people. It's knowing the business. So I love that and totally in line with that. For folks who are at that analyst level and they want to go to senior analyst. Drew, if you were coaching somebody to try to make that jump, what are some of the things that you would be coaching that person on?
Yeah, I would say I've been through this a few times being promoted, and then I've been on the manager side now for a year. And I would say it's never been a surprise. Like, I don't think many managers just kind of surprise somebody at an annual review, like, hey, congrats, surprise, you've been promoted. Like, it's
Yeah.
usually you and the analyst, the manager and the analyst both have a sense that the analyst is growing over time. They're helping their stakeholders succeed. The stakeholders have probably given lots of good feedback. So it's kind of like this journey where you see the growth happening over time. You see the trajectory that they're on. And if you're a good manager, you've been supporting them, giving them the tools and resources they need to succeed, right? And so if you feel like as an analyst, you're not on that kind of trajectory, you're just on average, probably not headed obviously for a promotion right away. But if that's your goal, then I think it's critical. Like, you let your manager know what your goal is. I also think it's important, if you feel like you're not in this position, but this is your goal, you can't just kind of come out guns blazing, being like, look, I want a promotion, right? It's gonna make the manager feel very defensive, on guard. I think it works better if you come at it from a perspective of like, look, like this is where I'd love to get to eventually. Can you help me get there? Right? And coming at it with that sort of attitude is like, I need your help. This is my goal. I would love your feedback on where I'm weak, where I'm strong, what my opportunities are, where the gaps are between where I am and where I want to go. And then that kind of guides the discussion around, well, what do I actually need to do? How's the manager going to coach the analyst, right? It could be some technical gaps. It could be non-technical gaps. It really depends on the person. But if you come at it with that sort of humble approach and you just seek feedback and you share the goal with your manager, you're already just way ahead in terms of the likelihood of you ever getting to that point, right? And if you don't share this goal, it's going to be very hard for you to get there without their support and their knowledge.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Katie, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts. But first, really good comment from Daniel saying he's been in a non-traditional analytics role for a while. So like some definitions around this could help. And I think I probably should have started there. Katie, would you want to try to give us a definition of like, what does it mean to be an analyst and a senior analyst? And I know the answer is like,
I was going to say my face is because it's kind of vague. But I would say an entry-level analyst has a lot of their work defined for them, and it's smaller chunks of tasks that you're doing, or it's repeatable tasks that you're doing. And your manager is working almost daily with you. You're having regular interaction with them. A senior analyst can work more independently, can work on bigger projects. Sometimes they act as like a pseudo manager, and sometimes there'll be a pairing between a senior manager or senior analyst and a regular analyst. So it's just someone that can operate more independently, from my perspective, take on bigger tasks. Yes, it means more experience. I think you can't skip to senior analyst level. You have to spend some time learning as you're an analyst, but I hope that's helpful. But it's kind of vague. Each company, as far as like job descriptions, what one company considers an analyst, another might consider senior. There's not a clear line as far as what distinguishes the two groups.
Yeah, and a lot of times you'll see companies will come up with like a leveling matrix where they try to have definitions. Even in those cases, it can sometimes be subjective, and there's flex and there's politics come into place, and there's a lot of things come into place. It's a really murky one, but I think, yeah, in general, really agree with what you're saying there. Mm-hmm. How about you, Katie? Oh, go ahead, Drew.
No, I was going to say, I had this mental framework shared with me once from a previous manager, and I found it so helpful. I just try to share this everywhere I go. And it's the idea that as an analyst grows in seniority over their career, they take on more independence, ownership, and proactivity, and scale. And so if you're thinking about an entry analyst, it's just like you said, Katie, like you're just not very independent. You need lots of help with your project management, understanding what you're doing. Probably you're not being proactive. You're reacting to requests that come to you. And that's a great place to start your career, just to like get some experience, understand how to work with data, how to visualize it, what kind of expectations or results are stakeholders looking for. And probably your scale, like your impact of your work is pretty narrow. Like you have an area you focus on. You're probably not responsible for the entire company's metrics and strategy, right? But as you grow into a senior analyst or a lead analyst or a principal level, all of those things are expected to increase. Like the amount of work that you own independently, the problems that you seek out proactively instead of waiting for work to come to you. And then the scale is influenced as well, like by the size of the problems you're chasing, the size of solutions you implement, and the impact they have. So I love that. And if you can like measure, just take an honest look at your own levels where you are, like how independent am I? Am I proactive? What's the scale of my work? If there's some areas there where you feel like you need to really improve, that could be one way to frame how you get from analyst to senior analyst.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it makes me think about, my first analyst role where basically I was being told, go get these metrics from this place and like create this specific thing. And, I'm basically just a pair of hands for someone else's brain. And then as you move up, it's the questions are more like, hey, can you go pull together some metrics here with a little less instruction? And eventually it's just like, hey, can you figure out how to track this for us and make this initiative better? And then kind of the highest level is like, you're the one asking all those questions and proactively kind of steering the whole company. So yeah, it's a really good framework. Kind of building on that, Katie, how about, I love the framework of being proactive, because I think to me, that's the value. It's a huge value jump. For somebody who's thinking about how can I be more proactive, not just be like a data monkey that's going and getting what they're told, but really starting to pick their head up. How would you recommend somebody get better at that skill?
Yeah, so I'll give some examples of what my team has done lately that are entry-level analysts that I think is good proactive work. We have a series of like data quality checks. Actually, we have them in Tableau, but I know you can have them lots of places. Whenever my team will look at the data and say, hey, we need a new check for XYZ because this condition happened and we don't want it to happen. So I built a new check and now we're making sure that doesn't happen again. That's really cool. Another thing, they had a monthly or quarterly audit that was in Excel. The Excel workbook was like really broken for different reasons because it was like 10 years old. They automated the task and put it in Tableau, and now the task is not quarterly. The task runs daily, and like it's a process improvement task. Another thing, like on the Tableau server, because we have Tableau server, we've been looking into prep as our like ETL tools. That's what we use. We built, like I had someone come and build a new prep flow to eliminate some other data sources. So like it's looking at the work that you already have and seeing, can I do this better or faster, or do I need to do it at all? Another good one another good story that comes to mind, we were doing an audit that like we no longer needed to be doing because again, it was 10 years old and different reasons. So like stopping work, like not doing that anymore because they came to me and said, hey, I'm doing this. Why am I doing this? And I said, I don't know why you're doing it. So no one can answer us. So let's stop doing that. All of these items, I think, are a theme of like working yourself out of your job, which is a big tip advice that I got from one of my first managers is all of the tasks you do today, think about how you can do them better, more efficiently, not do them that sort of vein. Then that frees you up to work on more interesting activities and prove those other skills, practice those other skills, and prove those other skills that you're ready for a promotion.
Yeah, that's such a great framework, whether that's through like automation of the tasks or you manually doing them more efficiently, or like teaching a more junior analyst, kind of coaching them up for replacement. Like that's how you can continue to rise and take on more scale. Like Drew was talking about, I love the term scale and thinking scale for yourself, and that's a really good framework for doing that. How about the this was one that when I was an analyst, like I had absolutely no idea how it actually worked. The the promotion process on the other side, like the managers, the directors, the VPs, like them deciding who gets promoted, I sort of thought, I don't know, very naively, my manager just decides and snaps their fingers. And then when you get to the other side, you're like, whoa, this is like so different than what I actually thought it was like. Katie, I'd love to start with you because I think you're at sort of a smaller shop. And then I think I'd love to hear how it has worked in both of your experiences.
Yeah. The company now is a little smaller, but I also have experience with the one before was a much bigger company. The first thing I want to reiterate what Drew said earlier, if you want a promotion, you have to tell your manager that you want a promotion because companies don't give out promotions unless you ask for them. They're not going to, very rarely do they. Sometimes they do because, again, this leads to a second point. You have to be able to compare analysts at big companies of different, like there's an analyst in sales and there's an analyst in marketing. And if we promote the analyst in sales, does that mean we have to promote the analyst in marketing? Those kinds of questions, it has to be equal across the board. And sometimes for individual people, that's not always fun to hear, and it's not always fun as a manager if you want to promote someone, but there's other people to be concerned. That's a whole other angle too, that I wasn't aware of until, I got on this side is, it is about that person's accomplishments, but especially at the bigger companies you get, if you have peers, they have to account for that too. The other tip I would say right off the bat is you need to tell them much earlier and you need to have a much longer time frame than what you're expecting, because I know I had this was a personal learning, like a couple roles back, I thought, I've already proved the work, I'm ready to have my promotion. So I get in my call with my manager and I say, I'm ready for a promotion. And then like in my mind, I'm expecting it to happen like the next week or the next month or something. And the reality is that most companies have an annual budget and salaries are included in that annual budget. And if you want a promotion, it needs to be approved in the next annual budget. There's exceptions, of course, but like generally speaking, you need to have like up to a year in advance for your manager to be having those conversations. They can say, okay, I think Drew's ready for a promotion. I could talk to HR about it, but HR is going to have some work to do to make sure that, what the new pay rate will be for Drew, or if other people deserve promotions too. So all of it takes much longer time than what you would think unless you've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in my role as manager, I think of myself less as a decision maker when it comes to promoting someone and more as a champion, right? So there's like levels above me where budgets are controlled, and there's probably at any given company like an allotted amount of promotions that can happen at any given time, and it's probably going to be once or twice a year, right? And if you don't already know 6 to 9 months in advance, the people above you don't know, and they don't want to be surprised with these last minute requests for promotions, right? There's a lot that goes into it. Getting that support is key, but then just understanding like there's work to do to make it happen. You can't just ask for it 6 months in advance and then show up on the day of and hopefully you got one, right? Like people are going to be scrutinizing you and calibrating you against other analysts and probably ranking you, as much as that is unfortunate to hear. Like you're getting compared. And then there's going to be more people who deserve a promotion than can actually receive one. Right. So having a manager who can be your champion in those kinds of meetings will help you actually get there. Right. And I think one of the things that could be helpful is trying to identify weaknesses or soft spots in advance as well. So when in that decision meeting, somebody raises a point like, oh, well, the analyst didn't do this kind of thing, or I worked with them once and there was this problem. The champion, the manager can speak up and say, you're absolutely right. We've already identified that and we've been working on an improvement plan. And here are some results that we can already show. Like they've already improved in this area. Like you don't have to worry about that in the future. That's really powerful too. And it's just one little thing that can help make it happen instead of, just it remains this wish. Dream.
Yeah, I love the advice of thinking about your weaknesses and like getting some input on that from, maybe it's your manager, maybe it's other people, but like literally just point blank ask the question, are there any things that you think would stop me from getting promoted at the next cycle? And like, what do you think I should work on? That's such good advice, because I think if you don't ask that question, other people are asking that question. Like the managers and everybody is going to be talking about those things, and it could be a total blind spot for you. So that's pretty awesome. I think hopefully everybody in the audience hears that one. I think it's really good. The other one that I want to touch on a little bit, you use the word calibrating when thinking about the one analyst versus another. And I've been part of 2 different companies that had the same process called calibration sessions for analysts and senior analysts. And we would literally do exactly what Drew was talking about, comparing analysts against each other and, saying, hey, Sally, we think, we would give them ratings on the scale, and we would say, like, I don't know, John's a pretty generous grader. Like, I don't think we should trust these 5 out of 5s for everybody, and then so we try to get them right. And like, that is kind of the process. And one of the things that I think is really interesting that I didn't know on the other side is I sort of thought it was all going to be on my manager. And I think really what you find out in those sessions is it's really a triangulation of the collective managers at a company, assuming you're at kind of like a bigger company, they're all going to be talking and saying like, oh yeah, Katie's amazing. Like, we've got to keep her happy. And like, it's not just your manager's opinion, it's going to be the other managers, the other like VPs and stuff like that. So you have to not just think about making your manager love you, but like, what is your brand like within the organization? Do these people even know who you are? And are they going to come to bat for you? And if you could do that, you're probably going to be ahead of everybody. And it's kind of annoying that you have to play the politics, but we're here to tell you the reality. So yeah, really good advice there.
Yeah, and the politics side, I personally kind of feel allergic to politics at work. Like I love it when people are transparent and say what they mean and they do what they say, and everyone knows as much as possible, but it's just not the world we live in. And often these things are out of your control as an analyst. So I like, this process can seem daunting, especially when you don't have a lot of control over this as an individual. Like, if you want to be promoted, you can let your manager know, you can develop an improvement, like a growth plan. You can do all these things. You can seek out feedback. And at the end of the day, it may still be out of your control. But I can't underscore that, like, none of that even happens if you don't start, right? So if it's your goal to level up and improve, like, just do a mental reset and try to objectively think about, like, okay, am I as great as I really think I am? Probably not. Like, can I approach my manager and just, in humility, share that I would like to grow to the next level, and I'm open to learning what needs to be done. And if you take the first step, the rest of it will flow from there. And most managers, I think they want to help their team grow and succeed. Like, they're not villains who are like trying to stop and keep you down. And if you work for someone like that, maybe try to find another job somewhere.
Yeah.
But most managers will be selfless and want you to grow. And then sometimes you'll even have a manager who will use it as like a stepping stone for themselves. So they'll view your growth as their team's growth, and it will be helpful for them too. And that's okay. That's kind of political, but you can still use that for your own growth, right? Like, even if your manager is not 100% dedicated in your success and they're kind of using it for their own thing, you can still use that yourself, right? But hopefully people here, we have good managers who are looking for us to grow, and it's, they're actually willing to help us if we approach with these goals. We have to start by telling them.
Yeah, it's so interesting. There definitely is that alignment, because like, for some team leader, if they want to be more effective throughout the organization, they need to get more out of their entire team. As you become a manager and a team leader, that's pretty much the number one way that we're judging that leader is how effective is that team. It's no longer about their technical skills. So even if they weren't benevolent, right, and they're totally acting in their own self-interest, they still want you to be better and for you to grow and be more effective. So there's good alignment there. And most of the time, I think if you like hated doing that and coaching people, you would try to stay in an individual contributor role. You would avoid management at all costs most of the time, probably. So most managers tend to be good people that actually do want to help out. Let me throw one more poll on here. I want to talk about education a little bit, and that's something that I think the two of you have a lot to add. So I want to know from the audience, what do you think is the minimum level of education that you need to thrive in a data career? And so you can pick a master's or other advanced degree, an undergraduate degree, or you don't need a degree at all. And I'm super curious to see what folks are saying. We've got most people are saying either undergraduate degree or you don't need a degree at all. Pretty small percentage saying masters. So let's, Katie, maybe we'll start with you on this one. We talked about before how you guys both have masters. What's your opinion on advanced degrees and how that's helped you? And would you recommend other folks go for it?
Yeah, I think the first couple of caveats I would say about the big considerations to think about with a master's program is what's your own learning style, and the financial investment in it. My company's paid for my master's degree, or a very large portion of my master's degree, and it's common if you're not yet in an analyst career in a large company. It's common for tuition reimbursement for companies to pay a certain amount per year. So if you think you like formal education, if that's how you like learning, I would wait and try to find a company that can pay for your degree. There's a lot of good programs. I went through UNC Wilmington, but there's many good programs out there that are online even that are pretty affordable. And, I chose my master's degree mostly because it was mostly paid for by my company. And because that's how I like to learn. I really did like it. I have my undergrad and my experience up until then wasn't that technical. I hadn't really learned SQL before, for example, and I didn't know I didn't know a lot about data. I was very interested. I had started with Tableau as like a business intelligence tool. I'm interested in data. So I did the program because I wanted to learn a little bit more formally, SQL, R, Python, different kinds of models. And so I did. That's exactly what the program was. That's what I learned, and it was great. But there are other ways to learn that too. There are definitely other free programs, other ways to learn that kind of stuff. So I would say yes, a master's degree could be beneficial for you, but it's not a requirement. And as far as standing out on a resume, I know that's I think that used to be more of a thing. Now, I don't know if a master's degree necessarily differentiates you. One plug back to Maven on their portfolio showcase tool, I think. I love that tool, and I love portfolios. The people that I've hired recently, I've hired because they've had good portfolios, honestly. And I use portfolios and technical reviews now. So I really think how this relates back to master's degree, I think you could have a really good portfolio and showcase that you know those concepts of R and SQL and Python and predictive models. You can do all of that and build a portfolio and still have that knowledge. So I think it's a good avenue, but I don't think it's the avenue that you need to go down.
Yeah. Drew, how about you? You've got a master's too, if I understand correctly. What was your experience like, and would you recommend it?
Yeah. I think if you want to get to some of the higher levels as an IC, an individual contributor, like a staff or a lead or a principal, right, really be overseeing the technical direction of how analytics is done at your organization, probably maybe you need that kind of degree. It would definitely set you apart when you're being compared to other applicants for that kind of role. Just because it's just a very easy way to demonstrate that you are rigorous and you've learned and you've done a lot of experience. But you just don't need that kind of stuff to get into analytics. And I typically recommend that people do not go after a master's degree until they've been in analytics for a while and they understand that's what they want their home to be. It could be a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of sacrifices, especially if you're doing it concurrently with work. And if you ultimately decide analytics is not for you, you might view it as a waste of your time and money later, right? So I would recommend doing analytics for a few years, get some real world experience, build up your non-technical skill set, and then go use your master's to really go deep in certain technical areas. Not every analytics master's they're not all equal. I will say some are like business analytics where you spend more time maybe learning about finance or operations, like maybe half the content would be about business and how to use analytics in a business. Some of these programs are much more like a data science degree. They're very technical. You're getting into algorithms. You're going under the hood and like, for example, like building a random forest model by hand, not with a package, right? Like, do you ever need to know that if you're a data analyst working at an insurance company? Probably not. You would just like load it in a notebook and it would work for you, right? So it depends on your interest, but I really would like caution against jumping from undergrad straight into a grad degree in analytics, unless you've already been doing analytics personally in undergrad. But yeah, everything Katie said, I agree. The cost can be big. I went to Georgia Tech online, and it was 10,000 US, which was astounding to me. It's the only school I applied to because I didn't want to pay like 50K for a degree. So yeah, like I highly recommend that program. I know I'm biased. It's not that I'm like a Georgia sports fan or anything. It's just like it was a great degree for a great value. And I feel like half the content was valuable to me in my career so far, and the other half was like interesting, but I've never used. And so you should expect that if you want to go through a program like this, you're going to have to take courses that you end up doing nothing with, right? You just set them to the side. The content's going to collect dust, but the other half will be very valuable, right? And you just you compare that with self-learning or online learning. There's really so much you can learn for free. And for most people, probably it's better that you just go pursue something online in your own time, and it's exactly what you want, and do that for as long as you can until you feel like you're stalling out. And maybe if you want more rigorous curriculum where you have videos and an instructor, then grad school is a great choice, but it's really not for everybody.
Yeah. And Drew, did you do that at night too? Like while you were working? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with programs like that too. Like you have proctored exams. Like it's just like undergrad, right? Like not everyone wants to step back into that structured environment, and that's okay. Like there's so many great resources online. Maven's one example, but even just YouTube. Like if you know how to find the right learning materials online, you can learn everything. It's all there. The hard part is just finding it.
Yeah, that's awesome. My experience is from a long time ago. I did an MBA 15 years ago is when I started, which sounds horrifying to me to say out loud, but I think the advice that you two gave, and even the way that you did it, is like, I think really, really good advice. So both of you doing it at night, like not giving up your salary, getting the employer to pay as much as possible. That was kind of the name of my game. Drew, amazing that you were able to do the Georgia Tech program for 10 grand. I feel like that is a massive outlier compared to most master's programs. But I think that's the thing, is like, think about the cost. It's probably going to be a large cost. What Drew is talking about is probably the absolute low end of a master's program. It could go 10 times that, and you don't necessarily know what you're going to get. But I love the advice to try to get your employer to pay for some of it if you can. I love the advice to don't just jump right out of undergrad, like get some experience, make sure you know what you want to get out of it before you invest in that. Just really, really awesome advice there. So thank you guys for sharing those perspectives. So let's jump into the Q&A. There were some really relevant questions, and I'll read these out on the screen because in the replay they don't show up, and also for anybody who's on audio. So Harini asks, what kind of data portfolio projects do you look for from aspiring analysts? And I think, Katie, it'd be great to go with you because you mentioned that like you love seeing a project. What makes a good project?
Yeah, I think you really only need a few projects actually in your portfolio. You really only need 3 or 4. You need an Excel project, you need a SQL project, you need a Tableau or Power BI project. Then you could have 1 or 2 repeats if you wanted in there, but really 3 is okay. And I would focus on those being really high quality. For Excel, I look at like there's certain set of functions that we look for. I'm sure lots of companies are that way, but like nested ifs, pivot tables, like data checking. So we use Excel a lot to do data quality checks. So like one workbook, and actually one of my analysts now had this as her sample piece. She just had a data quality sample piece where she importing dirty data from wherever, and then she has a few steps to clean the data, and she showed me how she cleans data. That was a really great sample. Tableau and Power BI, I mean, I think there's a lot of good guided projects to start, and then I would do those first and then try to do your own thing with data that's maybe personal to you, or data that's relevant to, like, if you know you want to apply to sales ops positions or something, you can do sales data with your portfolio. And then SQL, I mean, I'm not looking for anything super complex with this SQL. I'm actually looking for code comments or legibility or things like that. Like, it's easy to see when someone sends in chat GPT code versus like human code. So I would say SQL, like the technical stuff isn't necessarily even about being super technical, because as an analyst and an entry-level analyst, you're not going to be super technical, but as long as you can understand it. The senior level portfolio, I would say, you know, you're defining your own work. You're coming up with your own project, you're gathering your own data sources, and maybe you're combining, like maybe you're doing more that, like you have a step in SQL and then you have a step in Excel or a step in Power BI or something. You're combining different tools together, that kind of stuff, and just generally more difficult, challenging business questions to be answering with your portfolio pieces.
Awesome. I love the call out to comments in SQL. That, to me, that's such a good sign, such a green flag. So fantastic. Yassine asks, what are trustworthy certificates to get out in the market that can prove your qualifications and your level in data analytics? Drew, what do you think about certificates? Are there any that you're like would be really bullish on if you saw from somebody?
I might be the wrong person to answer this one. There are no particular certificates, but I would say if I have two candidates and one of them has a certificate and the other one does not, and they're equal in every other way, I probably go towards the one with certificate, just because it shows that they're really interested in this kind of career transition or up leveling, upskilling themselves, personal growth. Like, I am highly biased towards candidates who are on a growth trajectory, because I know that the person I hire today is not going to be the same person in a year or even 6 months. They're going to be so far ahead just because they are internally motivated to grow and learn. So I see like a certificate or a boot camp, like those are all signs for me that point towards growth. You know, like if you're on this call in the audience, you probably are one of these people, like, which is fantastic, you know, and like any way that you can differentiate yourself and show that you're on a growth trajectory is great. To me, it matters less what the exact certificate is, because I am not combing the marketplace and evaluating these, you know, these courses against each other. And I'm just not, you know, I'd have to go find someone to help me understand, like, if someone shows up with this certificate versus this one, or they went to this boot camp, or they went to this school, like, how do I weigh those? You know, like, I don't have that experience to know. So I'm more focused on what I learn in an interview with them, right? And like, it's all about the not intangibles, but like the all the non-technical things, right? Like, the technical stuff shows up very easily on paper. Certificate is a great way to capture that, but when you get into an interview, it's everything else that helps you land the next interview and get the job.
Yeah, that's an awesome take, and I think, like, I would say pretty much the same thing. And like a short summary of that is, it matters. It could be a good indicator, but for me, I would weigh seeing the projects much more heavily, and then that interview actually getting to talk to them much more heavily. So, you know, the other piece of it is, like, they can be a good way to sort of structure your learning, you know, if you're going for a specific cert. But that's awesome.
Yeah.
Tassio asks, what advice do you have to handle the politics of your company while aiming for promotion? And maybe let's go with Katie, because I think Drew is allergic to the politics. So
Appreciate it.
Advice to handle the politics while aiming for a promotion. I think you have to really accept that you have less influence than you think you have, and it's far less about you than you think it might be, even though it's your promotion and your paycheck. It just, you know, I think we said earlier, you know, your manager has to want a promotion for you. And so I think the best way actually for an individual contributor to handle the politics is to be aware of them and understand if they're on your side or they're not. Because if you don't have a supportive manager, and you don't have a team that is focused on promotions, you could do all the great work in the world and it's not going to happen. So I would say, and this is advice to my younger self too, if you're in a team that your manager doesn't recognize all your great accomplishments or doesn't value them, or your company just isn't, they're just not promoting right now, or there's factors outside of the control that you could be the best person you could be on that team and it doesn't matter. You still won't get a promotion. So that's actually, I'm not sure if that's what you were expecting, but that's what I would say, is just be aware of it and know if it's not on your side, then your promotion is not going to come from within your team. It's going to come either from going to a different team at that same company or going to a different company.
Awesome. Awesome advice there.
I stand by my allergy, but in my own career, I've experienced some of the frustrations of like being just the swirl and the churn of being in this political arena at work, where you really just want to show up and do great work every day and get rewarded for it, and like get great feedback from people, and go home feeling like you did a great job, and you're where you're supposed to be, and sometimes there's a lot out of our control that holds us back. Over the course of my career, I've learned through very hard circumstances, like I just have to be more patient, right? If things aren't happening according to how I would design them, if I'm not moving up as fast, or I'm not getting the results I want, or people aren't seeing my work, like I really focus on executing really well, and then try to ask the right people, like if there is something holding me back. Like sometimes people are afraid to share feedback with you, right? And they don't want to rock the boat. And you might have a hard time understanding what's really holding you back. Like your manager might not even give you honest feedback. So trying to gather feedback from lots of different people, like a full 360 review. If you don't get one of those through an annual review process, just conduct one yourself discreetly to try to really understand. I would also say, just in terms of like promotion process, politics at work, one person that I found very valuable on LinkedIn to follow is Ethan Evans. I don't know if anyone else here follows this guy. The former VP at Amazon. I'll drop a link to his LinkedIn in the chat, but he has lots of great thoughts on like how to navigate these kinds of political circumstances. What does it actually take to get your managers buy-in and support, and what does the process look like? So it's not analytics specifically, but just in a big organization, having someone with that kind of experience, like several levels up, just show you what it's all about, how it works. I find that really valuable. So maybe some people here would like that as well.
Yeah, very, very cool. Yeah, awesome advice, and thanks for dropping that link in there. Let's go to Harini, who asks, how do I develop my business acumen as a data analyst? Great question, because you see so many people talk about like how to get better at SQL, about Tableau, and that's also pretty straightforward. It's just like use the tools, find a course. Business acumen, a little less straightforward. Do either of you feel excited to give some thoughts? It's probably worth hearing from both of you on this one.
I can. I have experience both on the IT side of a company and the business side of a company, and I think the answer to this question depends where you sit in the company. So if you're on the IT side of a company, you're in a very technical role, engineering or something, data science. Your business acumen comes from your fellow business side data analysts, probably. You're talking to someone on the sales team or on the marketing team or something, and you're talking to them. And I think the main benefit of you learning business acumen is so that you can check the code for correct filters and business logic and context and things. So you know that one view, if you're showing sales data in one table, it's filtered the same way as the other table, and you understand why. So I think that one isn't necessarily, that is when you have a more technical role. When you have a business role, like right now I lead a team in sales operations, we sit with our salespeople. We try to have calls with them. We try to sit on their reviews with our customers or in executive meetings or other things. And we sit and we just listen. And then we'll write a few notes down and talk to them later, or think about, hey, there's a cool new report or view that would really help this conversation going on. So the biggest way that I've learned business acumen on the business side is just by asking people to sit in and listen on their phone calls, ride-alongs, or whatever, that's what we call them, but whatever, fly-on-the-wall meeting where you could just sit and listen is really a good way to develop business acumen.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would agree. Shadowing your business partners, trying to understand their goals, whether it's like an OKR framework or some kind of annual goal they're targeting. Also, I cannot underscore the importance of understanding how your data is generated, whether it's a website event or it's a factory widget that got made. Like all the data points that are captured that you're analyzing, how did that data get generated? What database created it? What does a timestamp actually mean? Like understanding that process really, really well gives you a leg up on other analysts immediately. But yeah, learning as much as you can about a business through like, public reports or newsletters. Yeah, it's critical. Yeah, it informs everything you do and how you analyze the data and recommendations you make.
Yeah, really good advice on that one. And I know that one is one that so many people struggle with. And so I think that's a fantastic one to end on. We are right at time. Katie, Drew, you two have been amazing today. Thank you so much for joining us. Audience, great questions. Love the chatter. We would hope to see you again next week and in future weeks. Thank you so much for showing up and making this fun for us. And yeah, Katie and Drew, would love to have you again in the future. You guys are wonderful.
Thanks, John.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.